So let's get started. I've got a little presentation to begin with to just talk about like the value of drawing in teaching and why working in these like visuals is going to really help the students and everyone else involved. I've just thought of an idea. I could just mute my thing. There we go. Hopefully you can still hear me. You can, good. Okay, let's go to the slides. So teaching through drawing. Today's plan, we're going to start off with a little warm up just to get you ready and get your hands warmed up. So hopefully you've got something to draw with and something to draw on. It doesn't have to be fancy at all, like a pen and a notepad is totally legit. Printer paper and a biro. It's not like art supplies central here. It's really basic. Just use what you have, start where you are. And the next thing is like, why draw? So the thing with drawing is that a huge percentage of learners are visual. I think it's 60%, is it on my next slide? Yeah, 60% of learners are visual. So if you're not using visuals in your teaching already, I'm sure a lot of you already are, but you're sort of excluding that 60%. In addition to that, if you can encourage your students to take notes while they're learning, then you're going to be ticking all of the learning boxes because they're listening, they're looking at visuals, and they're doing the kinesthetic thing of drawing their own notes. So it's going to boost how much they remember. They're going to just absorb so much more from the content that you're teaching them. So it's brilliant for you and the kids. A little bit about me. So I'm a live illustrator. So my main job is to go to online conferences and meetings, and I just draw what's happening and condense all this information into pictures. So this is an example from a US law firm that I worked for, and that was a 90-minute session turned into images. And the benefit of that is that it means people don't have to sit through a 90-minute conference, which is really boring, and people can kind of get the gist of what was going on without having to read a load of boring notes. So that skill is what I'm bringing to this workshop. Obviously, you won't be having to draw like a huge drawing, but just a tiny, like a sprinkling of images in what you do on the whiteboard, whether that's digital or traditional, is just going to really help everybody involved. So I've already talked about 60% of learners being visual. It's a shared language. So there's a quote from Alejo Porras: "I wanted to learn all the languages in the world, so I learned to draw." Good, I was just checking there's no messages on Zoom. You do not have to be an artist. So this is something that stops a lot of people. It probably actually stopped a lot of people even signing up to this workshop in the first place, but you're here and that's all that matters. So if you're sitting there panicking like, oh my God, Katie, I can't draw, like I can't draw a stick man, can't draw to save myself, I don't want to hear it. Like, this is not the place for excuses. This is not the kind of drawing that's for like masterpieces. This is more a way of using icons and visual reminders. So we're not going to be like drawing from life. This is just drawing almost like clip art images. So to sum up that very brief introduction, visuals are super valuable if you want to help your students reach more learning styles and boost the amount of information that they're sucking up and retaining. And art training is not required. So anybody can do it. It'll work for everybody. And yeah, if you say, oh, I can't draw, that's rubbish. Everyone can draw. It's like if you can write words, you can draw what we're going to be drawing today. It's like driving a car. Okay, so let's get warmed up. Let me put my camera back on so I can see you all. And are you ready? So you want to grab a pen to start with? And we're going to do some non-dominant hand drawing. So if you normally draw with your right hand, you're going to swap over to the left, and vice versa. If you're normally left-handed, draw with the right. And the first thing you're going to draw is a plant pot, but you've only got 10 seconds. Okay, so ready, steady, plant pot, go. Okay, you might want to put a flower in the pot if you're feeling adventurous. And time's up. Okay, so I'll hold mine up so that we're all in this together. That's beautiful left-handed plant pot. Okay, for the next one, I want you to draw something that you can see around you. So for me, I'm at my desk, I might draw on my computer, but you're not allowed to look at the paper. So I want you to either just, I'll trust you because you're all grown-ups, don't look at the paper, just look at the thing you're drawing. And like if you're really gonna cheat anyway, you can put a piece of paper over the paper so that you can't see what you're drawing, or a scarf or something. But we'll just get started. So on your marks, get set, start drawing something on your desk or that you can see. And you're allowed to use your dominant hand. Sorry, I should have said that. So we're just drawing. Oh, I cheated there. I totally looked at my paper. That was naughty. And this way of drawing, it really forces, well, you have to look at what you're drawing because you can't look back at the paper. It makes you think more about like where things are. You're having to try and remember as you go. And these are just really fast, silly warm-ups. So don't worry about what they look like. It's all just about warming up and getting started. So last few bits before we finish. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pens down. That was exciting. That's my beautiful laptop. It's not the laptop. You can see like the numbers have gone everywhere. It's all over the place. So again, it doesn't matter what that looks like, but we're all nice and warmed up now, and hopefully your brains are active. Let me go to gallery view and I can see everyone. You all look very awake. Well done. That's good. I'll go back to speaker view. So I've got my iPad plugged in. It's very fancy around here. So that means that when I'm drawing, you can see it really clearly, and it's not me holding up a notebook to the screen. So let me switch that on. It's gone to sleep while I was talking. And I'll just flip this around. There we go. So you can still see my face in case you miss me. I'm still here. So let's get started. I can still see the comments. So if you have any comments while we're going along, feel free to just put them in the chat box. Any questions or anything like that. Let me flip back to my notes. So the first thing that would be really useful actually is, I know you're probably all teaching different subjects, maybe you're teaching everybody. So if you can think of, well actually yeah, to start with, what is the subject that you teach? If you pop it in the chat box and then we can see who's teaching what, and I can think of some icons that we can build up your visual library with, because that's what we're going to be doing in the next section. Just building up a really straightforward visual library. Primary, so everything. You guys are superheroes. Oh my goodness. Art and design, nursery reception in year 1. Cute. Amazing. Oh, you're all doing like cool creative stuff. How exciting. Okay. Oh, thank you. So because you're teaching everything, that's good. We can just start with like a broad base. So the very first thing, I suppose, like an easy way to integrate some more visuals with what you're doing is to kind of get a bit creative with your headers. So, you know, when you're teaching something, you might write on the whiteboard. I don't know, try to think of an example. If you were doing addition, for example, then you like, rather than just writing good old fashioned addition. So I'll just pop it in normal writing. This is where you can experiment with other things. So you can add like a little shadow underneath. If you've got different, I know if you're using a normal whiteboard, you know what it is? It's been that long since I went to school. Is it all the magical digital whiteboards now? Or do you still use ye olde whiteboard markers? Primary, everything, art and photography. You use both. Okay, that's cool. Because if you're using a real life whiteboard marker, then it's going to be that you can't really do shadows and stuff. But if you're using a digital one, you can take the opacity of your pen down and sort of get a bit creative with the shadows like that. And it just makes it look a little bit more exciting. I know as well, you're not going to have loads of time for doing like bubble writing and stuff, so we're not going to do that. But sometimes just a tiny bit of shadow can like elevate it, make it look a little bit more exciting. But we won't spend long at all talking about text, because that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about images. Emma's using iPad Pro and Apple Pen mirrored to board. That's amazing. So that means you can definitely do this. That's what I'm doing right now. I've got my iPad Pro and Procreate, and I'm mirroring to the laptop. So it's very doable. So let's create some icons. So when I say icons, I'm just talking about really simple images. For instance, when I draw this, you all know what it means. It's like a completed task. So maybe you would be talking about homework or what you're going to be getting done on that lesson. The simple tiny thing. Can you hold it up so we can see what you're working on? Can you not see the screen? So like this is what I'm working on. The where it says addition, really big. Okay, Huddleston can see it. That's good. So I'm working on this. It's the same thing. There's no secret thing that I'm working on. So yeah, that's a really simple way to make things look a little bit more visual. Another one is this, and it's a little clock to visualize time. So if you were talking about like how long you're going to allow for a task, with these visuals, they're still like, you're still going to be writing words, and it's the combination of images and words just make it extra powerful, and it helps to like break up the information. So rather than having like your homework task is this, it's going to take 5 minutes, having the time symbol and the tick symbol, it's like when you think, if you look at your phone, think about how visual everything is on your phone. Like every app has an icon, every single thing that you look at, basically. So let's do some more of these. We've got a date. This could be also, if you're setting homework, something as simple as this is a good calendar icon. So you might even want to be like 5th of November. You could write that on there. What else have we got? These are images, the icons that I use so often. Things like this to symbolize paperwork or admin, or it could be homework that you want people to do, or an essay to write. You can borrow a lot of the things that you do see on your phone. So this one is really good for talking about location. What else have we got here? They're really self-explanatory. A quote. So you'd have your quote in there. And that's just breaking up the text, so it's not going to be text heavy, and these are really easily sprinkled around. Have this one as well, good old pencil. There we go. So those are some really straightforward icons. A lot of you were talking about the different subjects that you're teaching, so let's try and invent some of those that are super appropriate for your things. I've like managed to hide Zoom from myself. Come back, Zoom. How the hell have I done that? There we go, I'm back, I found it. Right, let's see. We had art and photography, art, science and primary. So science is a brilliant one for images. There are so many you can use, especially when you're talking like molecules or diagrams, and especially, you know, when you've got those sort of Venn diagrams and triangles with the different formula written on. So we can think of like science bottles are nice and simple to draw. And it's totally, these are not like crazy, super artistic things that we're drawing. They're just symbols really to help remind people what we're writing. Let's see, art and design is always a fun one. You can do a good old fashioned palette. It's almost like thinking in emojis. Like if you had a way to add emojis to everything you were writing. It makes it all look a little bit more interesting and fun. There we go. And it doesn't take long at all. I know you might be thinking like, well, that's easy for you to say, Katie, because you're just drawing these really fast, but they are just really super simple, quick, super scribbly drawings. Primary year 6 everything. DT. Remind me what DT is. It's something in materials, isn't it? Design technology. Ha. So yeah, for design technology, you might have like rulers or hammers. It's also a really lovely way if you want to set up, you might want to draw these before the class starts. If you're sort of prepping the board and you don't want to be drawing in front of children, you could have a thing set up where it's like almost you will need like a contents sheet. So for instance, if we were going to be baking a cake, for instance, you would have like, you're going to need a bowl. You're going to need flour. 2 eggs. So these are all extra options. And if you can incorporate that into the beginning of your lesson or the homework description or like the little list that you give them, like you're going to need to bring these in, it's going to be so much easier to remember if they've got like an image in their mind of like bowl, flour, eggs, rather than a written version trying to remember. I know for me anyway, I always remember way more if there's an image rather than just blocks and blocks of text. So can anybody think of some specific icons that might be useful for their subject? Like perhaps I've been saying these and it sparked off ideas for yours, for your different projects, or like leaving homework for people. Laser cutter, story time. Paul, that's a hard one. Laser cutter. I'm like, what does a laser cutter look like? Story time is a brilliant one. So for story time, you could have, you might want to write story time at the top of the board. Got a really thick pen here. You've got story time. And then for the younger kids, or just to like engage everybody, you've got your book and you can show all the pages open. And if a book that shape feels a bit of a stretch drawing wise, I'll make that one smaller. You could totally do a book straight on, so just a rectangle, and then have the pages coming out of the top. Take it another step further and even write story time on the book. Let's see. Catherine says these are very similar to the visual timetables we use in early years. Brilliant. Yes, so they can totally, they'll already have that sort of idea of visuals. Am I based in Berwick? Yes, I'm based in Berwick. You've probably seen the giant flag behind me. Procreate is the software that I'm using, but to be honest, the reason I'm using the iPad is just so that you can see my drawings really clearly. Because if you're using a good old-fashioned whiteboard, that's going to be just as good. Could you use icons for reminders for capital letters, full stops, and finger spaces? We use something similar. You totally could. So for capital letters, full stops, and finger spaces, yeah, you could make those up. Let's have a little look. So if you wanted to talk about finger, is that like when you put your finger in between each word to get the right spacing? Yeah. So you could do a nice simple hand. And then again, writing the words as well as having the icon can really help with people's children's understanding and their reading, because they might see the icon and be like, I don't exactly know what that means, but when they read like finger spacing, they'll be like, oh, totally. So there's finger spacing. Oops. Full stops. I saw somebody ask about class rules as well, and I've got a really good bit coming up next. And this is definitely an exercise that you could do with your classes for your class rules. And it's a fun way of using metaphor. So while these icons are very literal, and it's like, we're talking about a ruler, so we'll draw a ruler. The metaphor ones, we'll get to that. It's gonna be good though. You'll enjoy it. So yeah, class rules icon. And that's coming up. Playtime. Let's do a playtime one. So as before, write playtime. And then these might be really specific to your school. So if there's a specific game that the kids love playing at playtime, you could draw that. Otherwise, you could have like a ball, maybe the sun shining if they go outside to play. And yeah, I talked before about how stickmen are totally fine. So no shame at all. Happy face stickman totally counts. You're not gonna have to start drawing loads of children running around playing. I've made that ball look giant now because I drew that first. So shrink the ball down. Draw another child. So yeah, think of these as like visual reminders rather than having to tell the whole story. Hair up, aprons on, goggles on for DT. Spag, spelling, punctuation and grammar. Ooh, these are exciting. You've got all these cool like reminder things. Well, let's do spag first and then we'll do the other one. So I'm going to get a fresh sheet of paper. Okay, spag. Makes me think of spag ball. Get hungry. So again, we're going to write the words first, because for some people, reading the words will be easier than your icons. Spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So I'm thinking for this, it might be nice to sort of have a speech bubble coming out of each thing. Then we can fill it with what each one is. Just pushing my brain to the limits. Okay, spelling. How are we going to visualize spelling? Let's have a little, I'll give you a clue. Sometimes as well, if I'm really struggling to think of an icon, there is so much magic in literally Googling the word you're looking for, an icon. So spelling icon, it'll probably be like a person thinking, So we'll have a little thinking man. He's doing ABC. There we go. We'll not do a question mark because he's not confused. He knows exactly what he's spelling. So there's your little ABC guy. Punctuation. Oh, actually, yeah, let's definitely get rid of the exclamation mark in that one because it'll be confusing if we're doing punctuation in this one. There we go, a bit of punctuation and grammar. Can anybody think of a good icon for grammar? That stumped me a bit. There's a communicating print site which can help with the visuals for different words. We use it with non-speaking children or EAL students. Catherine, that sounds super helpful. Amazing. It also makes me think of, have you seen those guides you can get for when you're abroad? And it's just a picture of each item. So if you're looking for a toilet or something, you can just point to a toilet, and no matter what country you're in, what language people are speaking, they'll know what you're looking for. It's a really similar thing to that. So let's grammar. Yes, let's have a go. So we could do a little magnifying glass. and it's got a tick inside it. If you can think of something better for grammar, absolutely, by all means, go for it. But that's a very quick look at spag. No bolognese involved. I quite like the idea of the hair up, apron on, goggles on, because that is very visual immediately. So, hair up. Goggles on. And aprons on. So there's your little guy with her. And again, we'll just have her, the little speech bubble. Again, she could have totally been a stick man. Hair up, apron on. Oh, I've done it the wrong order, but you'll forgive me. Apron on. And yeah, just by turning that into a speech bubble, it looks a lot more exciting than a sort of rules thing. So let's move on and we'll do a little bit of the metaphor thing that we were talking about. The sort of thinking of things. In this instance, we're going to be using a class rules example. So if you were wanting to go through with the class and formulate some class rules and just communicate why they're going to be useful and what they're going to get out of it. So in this example, it's going to be a sort of a bed of flowers growing, a watering can, watering the plants, and sun shining to show that these are all the things that give a healthy, happy class. So the first thing we're drawing here is, let's check I'm on the screen. I am good. Our class. So you might want to say our class rules. And this rectangle is the flower pot that the flowers are going to be growing in. And these arrows. Now, I don't know what your class rules are, but whatever they are, no matter how specific they are, they can all be applied to this kind of template. So I've just seen Zed Newell's comment, can you model a figure drawing class stickmen haunt me all the way up school from art and design? Yes, we'll talk about stickmen in a minute. I'm sorry they're haunting you. I think art classes have a lot to answer for. You guys can change that, the future of art education. Okay, so we've got our plant pot. And now if you make the middle of the flowers big, you can give them smiley faces, which is always good. Can't go wrong with a nice smiley face. Don't worry if it's wobbly or it's not perfect. Even the wobbliest drawing will get the message across. More happy flowers, so cute. Now, here's your watering can. I've just done a kind of wonky semicircle. There's the handle. The spout is aligned with a circle at the end that you can dot, dot, dot. And we'll do some water coming out of the watering can. And then the next part of this image is the sunshine. And this is I'll make it bigger because I'm not on the screen. There we go, you can see it now. Lovely. And then they've got the rays of sun, and this is where you can add extra information. So it can be helpful to switch to a different color at this point. There've been studies done that using different colors can also help with processing information. So I always say, like, you don't have to use a whole rainbow of colors, but even having 2 or 3 can really separate information and make it much easier to process. So I'll switch to that dark orange again. There we are. And yeah, like I said, this can be totally adapted to what your class rules are, but for instance, you might want to have in the sunshine up here, student behavior, and then for each ray, you want to talk about the positive behavior that you want to encourage or what your class rules are. So student behavior. What do I put? Yeah, like putting your hand up. Actually, have you got any good class rules that I could put on here so it's not just me guessing at what school is like? I've got putting our hand up, doing our homework, and being on time. Kind hands, kind words. Oh, that's nice. Let's definitely do that. Kind hands, kind words. Listen to others. These are so nice. I feel like schools have gotten nicer since I was at school. Active listening, respect each other. Yes, respect. Did I have that one? Oh yes, that was the watering can in my practice I did earlier. So good sitting, good listening, good looking. Amazing. So yeah, you might want to have respect each other. Brilliant. These are great. Thanks for sending them in. Listening is very important. We've got listening, we've got kind of hands, putting your hand up. That kind of goes with listening, doesn't it? Brilliant. So let's have a look here. And you might have some other things that go along with these arrows. It's totally different for each class. I would imagine you might have these are the things that give us a healthy learning environment, or these are gonna make everybody feel happier at school. So see, Kefford, I use Bitmojis for good sitting, good looking, good listening, good thinking. Yeah, emojis are brilliant, and also they communicate so quickly. Emojis and icons all the way, I say. Christian, please would you tell us a bit more about iPad Pro and software you use, etc.? What would you like to know? I suppose the only thing to tell is that I'm using Procreate, which is, I think it's about £10 to buy the app, but it's a one-off payment. It's not a monthly subscription, which is always nice. And yeah, I've got it plugged into my iPad so that you can see it. But yeah, I think it could totally work with a normal whiteboard as well if you had a stylus and you were working on it that way. Yeah, hopefully that helps with your question. So another thing that can really help, so you've got that class rules thing, you could work together with the students making a nice image together, a big thing that you print out or you put on the wall, or a giant whiteboard that doesn't ever get cleaned. The next thing that is really nice and can help, even if you are writing stuff, just a fantastic way to break up information is using nice frames. So let's have a look. I've got some of my examples here. Where are they? So one of the classic ones is a good old, just putting sort of photo corners on the edge. Nothing fancy has happened there, but if you've got loads of text, it makes it much easier to read. Bonus points as well if you add a heading. The heading's kind of separate. So this is not drawing per se, it's just a way of visually splitting things up, making it more bite-sized, and then it means if the student kind of zones out for a while and eventually they glance back up at the board, they're not like, oh no, look at all the writing, I don't know what's happening anymore. So let's see, I've got more frames that I drew in advance. because I knew my brain would go blank. It's here, next page. Yes. So another one is to just have your rectangle around the information. These lines are writing, by the way. And then even a quick sort of a bubble around it gives it a more cartoony feel, and it makes it look more inviting. The good old thought bubble, also a classic. You can incorporate a thought bubble, you're winning. And you can be scribbling these down while I'm scribbling them, and that means later on when you look in your notebook, you'll have some extra inspiration for board decoration. The other thing, I don't know how often you might be using diagrams and things in your teaching, but having like, ways to visualize data could always be quite a good way to take it from dull blocks of text and break it up into images. So for instance, if we had a diagram like this with a y-axis and an x-axis, rather than just doing, you know, traditional bars and things, you might want to try little apples, bananas. Again, these are not masterpieces, they're just quick icons. Then you could call these oranges. And again, I'm sure there's going to be a random time when you can slip some fruit into a lesson. Okay, let's go on. We were talking about stick people, weren't we? Somebody was asking Newell, Z Newell, can you model a figure drawing stickmen haunt me all the way up school from art and design classes? Yeah, let's do it. So the traditional stickman is, oops, not on the right layer. You've got your round head, your two legs and your arms. But if you want to up level your stickmen, I've got just the thing for you. And also hands, because hands are notoriously difficult. So we'll deal with some hands as well. So one trick for you taking your stickmen up to the next level is to sort of dress them. So I'm going to give this guy a little face, and then we're just going to draw clothes on top of his stick body. And if you give him a sort of tartan shirt, then you would never know that he was a stickman. Give him a little collar. Give him a little mitten. Mittens are a very good way to give your stickmen clothes, hands, sorry. And maybe you want to just colour his trousers in, save you a job. Hide his leg lines. And there you've gone from stickman to fully formed dude. Another way to draw stick people is to approach it in a star shape. So we've got, you know, when you draw a star, so this is like a normal star, and then if you stretch it up long ways, it can look like a person. So I'm going to rub out the top and put his head on. Let's see, got little mitten hands again. Give him a little happy face. Colour in his t-shirt. The good thing with a whiteboard, whether that's online or in real life, is like you can just colour bits in and nobody will ever know that it wasn't a whole, like they won't know that it was just a star stretched out. So that's a second way to approach drawing people if you're really allergic to drawing people. And these are super like doodly, they're not related to how people look in real life, but that's totally fine. You can also do an A person. So you draw a letter A, and with this, we're going to give a head, put an arm, and voila. You can give them shorts or a dress, put some hair on. Easy peasy, super quick. And again, you can be practicing these, just scribbling them down, and you'll see how really easy they are. The oval person is another option. So we've got a long circle. Let's check. Oh, it kind of went off the page a bit. There we go, oval circle, and then an oval circle for the head. This reminds me of those, have you seen that meme where it's like how to draw a horse and it's got the two shapes, and then the next stage is like add shading and then it's a perfect horse. And it's totally not how drawing is, but it's funny. So yeah, again, colouring in the oval and giving it some legs and some feet and a face. Mr. Oval Man. Would you guys like to do some faces as well? Or is this drawing people not that interesting? I'm not sure. We could also do hands as well. Easy ways to draw hands. Let me know. Hands and faces. Both. Okay, brilliant. Let's do both. So we'll do hands first because they're a little bit, I was going to say they're easier. They're not easier. They're hard as well. But this is a really good way to do it. So we've talked a bit about the mitten hand. So that's literally like drawing a mitten is a really quick way to bypass the whole trauma of trying to draw a hand. If you've ever been in an art class trying to draw a hand, you'll know they turn into like sausage fingers. Everything's the wrong size. So the mitten is a brilliant starting point. Let's get a fresh sheet of paper and we'll talk about the stick hand. So you start this one with a dot, and this is the thumb. This first line is a little bit shorter, and then these other two are a bit longer. So it looks like a terrifying witch hand, but you'll be amazed, like if you draw these on your stickmen, they do kind of work, and you can have them like gripping and waving. If you want to level up your stick hand, we can move on to the square hand. So the basis of this is a little square, and that's like your palm. And then coming out of the bottom left corner is a thumb. And then we're going to add fingers. And it's worth noting here the length of the fingers. So if you look at your own, you'll see that your swearing finger is the longest one. So if you just make sure that that second finger is the longest, the other two are kind of the same length, and then your pinky is the shortest, and then you can't go far wrong. And you can play around with doing different things. So you can have the thumb here. And this is like a number one, like, you know, when you're saying one. You can also do 3. And you can see it really does look like a hand, and it's so easy. You're not having to worry about drawing sausage fingers or any of that. Swearing finger, yeah. I'm very professional. Okay, so let's also do some more mitten stuff, because you cannot underestimate the power of the mitten hand. It's definitely a favorite of mine when I'm in a really fast meeting and I can't keep up. So there's a little teardrop and a big one. That kind of goes to this shape. I think just starting out by drawing a mitten is probably the easiest, actually. So you've got your mitten. And then if you want to make it look more like a hand, we're remembering that this is the thumb. So the thumb can go in. And there we go. That's like a 1. And then if you also think further, these would be the sort of overlapping fingers. So we're getting closer to drawing, I think, like a whole hand. So this is like gradually building up from stick hand to hand with actual fingers. So if you're feeling brave, we'll go in. Looks like bananas. Okay, thumb here, finger, swearing finger's the longest. And we've got your other fingers. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but that is a good old-fashioned hand. And then the next one we're going to do is a hand pointing up to do like a number 1 figure. So let's make this guy smaller just so I've got space. And the first thing is the thumb coming over. And then if you think to the square hand, you can kind of take what we learnt from drawing the square hand to drawing this one. So got 1. And then these little sausages are the bent over fingers. Doesn't have 5 fingers, but that is okay because sometimes cartoon hands just look better with less fingers for some reason. So this one is for doing 3. And again, these can start looking a bit ropey, so sometimes it is just best to stick with the stick hands and deal with it, especially if you're in a high pressure environment, drawing really fast on the board for kids, you might just want to be like, the stick hands, children, deal with it. And they'll still know exactly what you're getting at and what you're trying to communicate with your images. So let's do some faces and expressions. This is a really fun one. So face shapes, I think it doesn't really matter what shape the face is, but we'll do a few faces. Some square faces, some ovals, sort of alien face shape. Give it some necks, and then we can talk about different faces and different expressions. They don't have to be perfect. Let's see. So different eyes, we'll do some different eyes first. The very first one we've got is kind of a classic, good old-fashioned googly eyes. They're round and they're looking up. It's also worth remembering good old art stuff that when you look at a head, the eyes are actually in the middle of, like if you're going to draw a circle, the eyes are in the middle, even though it feels like they're further up. So I've actually drawn my eyes too high up, so I'm going to just cheat and move them down. So yeah, if in doubt, draw the eyes at the halfway point of the circle that you're drawing. More eye ideas, you can do curved lines, like happy eye emojis, give them some eyebrows as well. You can do dots, nothing wrong with a good dot eye. I think I prefer doing a dot eye really. You can also do half circles. Look a little bit scary, don't they? You can do lines and circles, so it's a little bit like this one, but we're going to add circles to that. More eye options that I'll do down the side. You've got stuck together eyes that are looking sideways. Those are very common. And if you wanted to do girly eyes, you could add some eyelashes on too. My favorite though is the dot eyes. They're so easy. 2 dots, maybe some eyebrows if you're feeling adventurous, and then you like boom, done, next problem. And yeah, you can add eyebrows, eyelashes, whatever you like. Let's do some eye bags. So assuming that maybe this person's tired or they're stressed, eye bags can communicate that. So just adding them on like that, or you can like attach them to the eye. Instant old eye. You can also add wrinkles to the top like that to oldify them. Let's add some noses. So 3 bumps is a nice easy one. Just like trying to think, it's like a W, a triple U. A half circle, nice and easy. That looks like a smile now. It won't look like a smile when we add an actual smile. A sideways C. There you go. An almost 6. So just not finishing the number 6. A U shape. We've kind of done that one, haven't we? An upside down 7. You can also do a V nose. Looks a little bit like a beak. And one thing that tends to mess up a nose instantly is adding nostrils. So the best thing is to not bother with nostrils. Forget nostrils exist. Life is easier without them. Let's add some mouths as well. So let's do a sort of wobbly mouth, kind of looks like a splat shape. And I'm gonna leave a little tongue. It's a bit of a silly mouth. You can do a bow tie. So it's like a bow tie shape, and colouring in half, leaving the top half as teeth. That person does not look happy, but never mind. A circle is always good, and again you can add the teeth at the top, tongue at the bottom, and colour in the middle bits. Bottom one, we've got a crescent, good old-fashioned crescent, and a line. Can't go wrong with a good line smiley face, and then it's done. A quick one as well, if you want to make somebody look old, adding lines from the nose to the mouth can like instantly do that. So I'll show you with this one. Make the mouth a little bit smaller. There we go. This is my old person at the end here. Okay, oh, we've only got 5 minutes left, so we'll quickly talk about hairstyles. I feel like hairstyles, you can really quickly just make them up. So you can add curly hair. You can add straight hair. Might make that a little bit longer. It looks a little bit not good. There we go. Remember that hair goes behind the head as well, so it like goes right to the neck. Otherwise, it looks a bit odd. A little bit of hair like that. You can pop some ears on as well. There we go. And yeah, you can just play with all of those. I think this old lady definitely needs some curly hair. Like she said, she's been for a perm. There we go. So all of those being said, I think there's nothing wrong with a good old fashioned, just like a smiley face. Done. Boom, done, next problem. And you can mix all of those up and play around with different ones. But yeah, hopefully that's been helpful. If you've got any last minute questions, I can answer those before we wrap up. We've got 3 minutes to go. And let me put that one back on. Abby says, is there a book you can recommend to help with basic designs? Yeah, there's a really good one, and it's called Visual, let's see, I've got it, Visual Note-Taking, and it's by Emily Mills. So I'll write it in. Emily Mills. Oh, there's an S on the end of Mills. That's a really good book, and that talks you through all different ways to take visual notes, if it's for your own learning or for others, and that can be really helpful. Has anybody else got any other little questions before we go? And yeah, we talked about the software, it's Procreate. But yeah, hopefully this can help you with when you're working on a whiteboard, if it's digital or traditional. It's a brilliant way to just break up information and make it look a bit more exciting. Well, yeah, you're welcome, Rose. Is there a point when this becomes excessive? Anna asks. Probably if you were not adding any text and just doing images, sometimes it can feel a little bit abstract. So I know, like when I'm taking visual notes for meetings and things, there is a point where people just, it's like you need some context as well. So like having the words and the image, they're really powerful together. I don't know about it being excessive though, it totally depends. I think if you're writing on a board for children, you won't get a chance to have it be excessive because you'll be too busy anyway, won't you? And yes, the recording will be, oh yeah, Andrew's answered, it'll be on the CBNE, Culture Bridge Northeast website afterwards. Let's see, I'm glad you've enjoyed it. It's always tricky teaching over Zoom because you're like, I don't know, people are just doing their listening faces, what's happening? Yeah, this has been great fun. Somebody asked about a YouTube tutorial. I can't think of one that I know, but I think you guys could be that tutorial for the kids now. It was Bethany. Bethany said, could you recommend any good videos or tutorials for pupils to learn to draw faces step by step like you've demonstrated? You can be the YouTube video now. Make sure they draw the eyes at the halfway point. Use the different symbols. They'll be experts at drawing faces before you know it. So thank you all for coming. It's been brilliant fun. Oh, look, Sophie to the rescue. There are YouTube videos called Drawing with Kids, which my niece uses, and they're brilliant. Amazing. Something called Squiggle It. Thanks, Catherine. That sounds good. Yeah, there's loads of resources out there. So definitely encourage your kids to take notes as well, because them doodling, even though it might look like they're just not listening, sometimes by doodling, they're processing so much more information and remembering it all than they would if they were just sitting being really well behaved. So Kay Huddleston, I'm feeling a little more confident with my drawing skills. Thank you so much. You are welcome. So yeah, that's 5 o'clock on the dot. That's us, isn't it?